Hi, Chicken Nugget Butt. So, I'm still in Costa Rica, and I'm sure I'm having lots of fun and studying really hard, so I know lots of Spanish when I get home. But I wanted to start reading another book. This one is called Afternoon on the Amazon. Now, I know that you had asked me to read this one first, and I don't know if you are watching it in order or not, but if you are, then this is the second book in their newest mission, which is to find 4 things so that they can help Morgan Le Fay. And the first thing they found was with the ninjas. Do you remember the ninja book? And they found a moonstone, and that's what they have. And at the end of that book, Annie tucked Peanut in her sock. Ugh. So now we're going to read the second part of that mission, and that's Afternoon on the Amazon by Mary Pope Osborne. This is book number 6 still. The prologue first. One summer day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. 8-year-old Jack and his 7-year-old sister Annie climbed into the treehouse. They found it was filled with books. Jack and Annie soon discovered that the treehouse was magic. It could take them to the places in the books. All they had to do was to point to a picture and wish to go there. Jack and Annie visited the time of dinosaurs, knights, pyramids, pirates, and ninjas. Along the way, they discovered that the treehouse belongs to Morgan Le Fay. Morgan is a magical librarian from the time of King Arthur. She travels through time and space, gathering books. In their last adventure, Night of the Ninjas, that's the one we just read, Jack and Annie learned that Morgan was under a spell. To free her, Jack and Annie have to find 4 special things. In old Japan, they found their first thing, a moonstone. Now Jack and Annie are about to set out in search of the second thing, in Afternoon on the Amazon. So chapter 1 starts on page 3, and it's called, Where's Peanut? Hurry, Jack, shouted Annie. Annie ran into the Frog Creek woods. Jack followed her. It's still here, Annie called. Jack caught up with Annie. She stood beside a tall oak tree. Jack looked up. The magic treehouse was shining in the afternoon sunlight. We're coming, Peanut, Annie called. She grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. They climbed and climbed. Finally, they climbed into the treehouse. Peanut, said Annie. Jack took off his backpack. He looked around. Sunlight slanted across a stack of books. Books about ninjas, pirates, mummies, knights, and dinosaurs. The letter M shimmered on the wooden floor. M for Morgan Le Fay. I don't think Peanut's here, said Jack. I wonder where she is, said Annie. How do you know Peanut's a she? Asked Jack. I just know it, said Annie. Oh, brother, said Jack. Squeak! Annie laughed. Look, Jack! A small pink sock was moving across the floor. Yesterday, Annie had turned her sock into a bed for Peanut. Annie picked up the tiny lump. Squeak! A brown and white mouse peeked out of the sock. She looked from Annie to Jack with her big eyes. Jack laughed. Hi, Peanut, he said. Will you help us again today? Asked Annie. In old Japan, Peanut had helped them when they'd gotten lost. We have to find 3 more things for Morgan, said Annie. Jack pushed his glasses into place. First, we have to find a clue that tells us where to begin, he said. Guess what, said Annie. What, said Jack. We don't have to look very far. She pointed at a corner of the treehouse. In the shadows was an open book. So are you ready for the second adventure of it? Looks like they're ready. Here we go, my love. Chapter 2, Big Bugs. I wonder if they're talking about you, Eva. You're pretty big, and I call you Bug. I don't know, though. Wow, said Jack, picking up the book. The ninja book was open yesterday. Now this one. Who opened them? Jack closed the book and looked at the cover. It showed a picture of a green forest. The trees were very tall and close together. On the cover were the words, The Rainforest. Eva, when I'm in Costa Rica, one of the things I get to do is go to the rainforest. Pretty cool. I'm excited about that part. And that's where I'll see a sloth, and you can look up on the computer what a sloth is. And I'm going to take pictures, and I'm going to send them to you. But Daddy and I were in a rainforest one other time in Australia, and he has some pictures of that rainforest. So if you wanted to, he could even show you those until I can send you new ones. All right, back to the story. Oh, wow, said Jack. Oh, no, said Annie. What's wrong, said Jack. I learned about the rainforest in school, said Annie. It's filled with big bugs and spiders. I know, said Jack. Half of them have never been named. It's creepy, said Annie. It's neat, said Jack. He wanted to take lots of notes in the rainforest. Maybe he could even name some unknown bugs. What do you think, Eva? Would you like it? Or would you be more like Annie and say, ugh, yuck? Or more like Jack and say, woohoo? I have a guess. I think he would like it, but I don't know. Neat? Yuck, said Annie, and she shivered. I don't get it, said Jack. You weren't afraid of dinosaurs. So? You weren't afraid of the castle guards or the mummy's ghost. So? You weren't afraid of pirates or ninjas. So? You're not afraid of really scary things, but you're afraid of little bugs and spiders. That doesn't make sense. So? Jack sighed. Listen, he said, we have to go there to help Morgan. That's why the book was left open. I know that, said Annie, frowning. Plus, the rainforests are being cut down, said Jack. Don't you want to see one before it's too late? Annie took a deep breath and slowly nodded. Okay, then. Let's go, said Jack. He opened the book again. He pointed to a picture that showed blue sky, green leaves, and bright flowers. I wish we could go there, he said. The wind began to blow. Squeak! Stay here, Peanut, said Annie as she put the mouse in her pocket. The wind picked up. The tree house started to spin. Jack squeezed his eyes shut. The wind was whistling now. The tree house was spinning faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Wild sounds broke the silence. Screech! Bzz! Chip, 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 chip. Eva, here's a picture. I know you have the book so you can already look at the picture, but I like to pretend to try to show it to you. And I know it's not very good on here. Look at Jack's got his eyes squeezed shut. Peanut is in Annie's pocket. And they're rushing off to the rainforest. Would you be excited, Eva? Do you remember where they're going? Yeah, they're going to the rainforest. I wonder what they're going to find in the rainforest. Okay, ready, Eva? Chapter 3. Yikes! Jack opened his eyes. The air was hot and steamy. It looks like we landed in some bushes, said Annie. She was peeking out of the treehouse window. Peanut was peeking out of Annie's pocket. Jack peeked out of the treehouse, too. They had landed in a sea of shiny green leaves. Outside there were flowers, bright butterflies, and birds, just as in the book. That's strange, said Jack. I wonder why we didn't land in a tree, the way we always do. I don't know, said Annie, but let's hurry and find the thing for Morgan, so we can get back home before we meet any big bugs. Wait, said Jack, this seems weird. I don't understand why we landed in bushes. I'd better read about this. Oh, come on, said Annie. We don't even need the ladder. We can just climb out the window. Annie put Peanut in her pocket. She stuck one leg out the window. Wait! Jack grabbed Annie's other leg. He read, The rainforest is in 3 layers. Thick treetops, often over 150 feet in the air, make up the top layer. This is called the forest canopy. Below the canopy is the understory, then the forest floor. 150 feet in the air, Eva? That's even higher up than a Ferris wheel. It's so tall. We haven't been on anything in a long time that's 150 feet in the air. So what do you think would happen if she just jumps out of the window and they're 150 feet in the air? Probably not a very good ending for Annie, so maybe it's a good thing that Jack stopped her, huh? Get back in here, cried Jack. We're probably more than 150 feet above the ground. In the forest canopy. Another picture of her. You think he's making the right choice, telling her to get back in there? I like this picture. It's pretty cool. I think it's one of my favorite ones so far. And if I flap this book, maybe the bird looks like it's flying. Yikes, said Annie, and she slipped back into the treehouse. We have to use the ladder, said Jack. He got on his hands and knees. He moved leaves away from the hole in the floor. He looked down. The ladder seemed to fall between the branches of a giant tree, but Jack couldn't see beyond that. I can't tell what's down there, he said. Be careful. Jack put the rainforest book in his backpack. Then he stepped onto the rope ladder. He started down. Annie followed with Peanut in her pocket. Jack pushed through the leaves. He came to the understory, below the canopy. He looked down at the forest floor. It was very far away. "Oh, man," whispered Jack. This world was completely different from the one above the treetops. Now that they were out of the sun, it was cooler. It was also damp and very quiet. Jack shivered. It was the spookiest place he'd ever seen. Eva, what does that mean? What is a spooky place? Yeah, it was really scary. So he didn't really like it very much. Let's see. Because this one is so short, I'm going to read one more chapter to you tonight, lucky girl. We're going to read through chapter 4. Millions of them. Jack didn't move. He kept staring down at the forest floor. "What's wrong?" Annie called from above. Jack didn't answer. "You don't see any giant spiders, do you?" Annie said. "Well, no." Jack took a deep breath. "We have to keep going," he thought. "We have to find the special thing for Morgan." "No spiders. Nothing scary," Jack called, and he started down the ladder again. Jack and Annie climbed down through the understory. Finally, they stepped onto the forest floor. Only a few rays of light slanted through the gloom. The trees were very, very tall and very wide. Vines and moss were hanging everywhere. The ground was covered with dead leaves. "Before we do anything, I'd better check the book," said Jack. He pulled out the rainforest book. He found a picture of the dark world under the treetops. He read, "In the rainforest, many living creatures blend in with their surroundings. This is called camouflage." All right, so they landed in the trees, in the treetops, which was called the forest canopy, and it was kind of on top of everything. And then they had to climb down the ladder, Eva. In the middle part, like where it's under the trees but not on the floor, do you remember what that was called? It's called the understory. That's right. So it's under the trees, and so they call it the understory. Kind of like when you're climbing in a building, you have each floor is called a story. So the first story, the second story, the third story. So they have the canopy, and then they have the understory because it's under the canopy, and then they have the forest floor. And then he just read more about it, and it says that the animals blend in with their surroundings like camouflage, so you can't really see them. Let's find out what happens next. "Oh, man," said Jack. He closed the book and looked around. "There's tons of creatures down here. We just can't see them." "Really?" whispered Annie. She and Jack peered around at the quiet forest. Jack felt unseen eyes watching them. Let's hurry and find the special thing," whispered Annie. "How will we know when we find it?" Jack said. "I think we'll just know," said Annie. She headed off through the gloom. Jack followed. They crept between the huge trees and past hanging vines. Annie stopped. "Wait, what's that?" "What's what?" "Listen, that weird sound." Jack listened. He heard a crackling sound. It sounded like a person walking over leaves. Jack looked around. He didn't see anyone, but the sound got louder. Was it an animal? A giant bug? One that had never been named? Just then the silent forest came alive. Birds took off into the air. The frogs hopped over the leaves. Lizards ran up the tree trunks. The weird noise grew louder and louder. "Maybe the book explains it," said Jack. He opened the book. He found a picture of different animals running together. And he read, "When animals hear a crackling sound, they flee in panic. The sound means that 30 million flesh-eating army ants are marching through the dead leaves." Eva, army-eating ants, flesh-eating army ants, flesh-eating army ants. Eva, remember how you were scared about ants that bite because it would hurt your skin? These ants, 30 million of them, would eat your skin. So you don't want to be around those. Those are scary kinds of ants, aren't they? Ooh, scary. Do you think they'll be okay? So it says, "It's army ants," cried Jack. "Millions of them." "Where?" cried Annie. Jack and Annie looked around wildly. "There! There!" Annie pointed. I'm going to show you the picture. I really like the pictures in this book. I wonder, maybe you could send me an email and tell me if you like the pictures in this book, because I think that they're pretty cool. And maybe what your favorite thing is. Look at all the animals. They're running away. Can you see the frog and the monkey? There's a spider by my finger, and I see one teeny tiny ant way down here at the bottom. I don't know if that's a nice ant or not. Army ants. Millions and millions of them were marching over the leaves. Run to the tree house, cried Annie. Where is it? Said Jack, whirling around. All the trees looked the same. Where was the rope ladder? Just run, cried Annie. Jack and Annie took off. They ran over the dead leaves. They ran between wide tree trunks. They ran past the hanging vines and mosses. They climbed over thick roots. Jack saw a clearing ahead. It was filled with sunlight. That way, he cried. Jack and Annie hurried toward the light. They pushed their way through the bushes. They burst out onto the riverbank. They stared at the slow-moving brown water. Do you think the ants will come this way? Annie said, panting. I don't know, said Jack. But if we wade a few feet into the river, we're safe. Ants won't go into the water. Come on. Look, said Annie. She pointed to a big log rocking at the edge of the river. The inside of the log was dug out. It looks like a canoe, said Jack. He listened to the crackling sound in the distance. Let's get in it, quick! Jack shoved the book into his backpack. Then he and Annie carefully climbed into the dug-out log. You think this is a good idea, Eva? Would you just jump into a stranger's boat? Or would you face the ants? What do you think? I think I would probably get in there, because remember, those ants will bite, and I bet if enough of them bit you, you would die. Scary. I promise when I'm in the rainforest, there aren't any ants like that in the rainforest that I'm going to, so you don't have to be worried. Xander, I'm reading. Annie leaned out of it. She pushed away from the bank with her hands. Wait, said Jack, we don't have paddles. Oops, said Annie. The canoe started moving slowly down the muddy river. Oh no, Eva, what do you think's going to happen? I don't have any paddles, and they're stuck in that boat. But at least the ants won't be able to bite them, and so that's a good thing. All right. I love you so very much, and I'm sure I'll get to see you soon. I hope you're enjoying your Jack and Annie stories with Mom. Love you. Bye, baby.